Hello, everyone. What's going on, everyone? Welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday, May 22nd edition of Systems Lab Live. Oh, Lord. We are, that was too funny. We are rocking really, really strong. This is the 5th month of Systems Lab Live of 2024. We probably only missed maybe like 2 or 3 this year, but this is an exciting time. What's happening, everyone? Hey, thanks on the Instagram fam for tuning in. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn Live, and on Instagram. Welcome to Systems Lab Live. This is the #1 show for project managers and project leaders and operations professionals to do what? This is what we talk about: managing teams, leading out projects, and developing processes. And this is what we do every single week. This is training. This is getting to the fundamentals. This is figuring out what's what and how to do the work well. How to do it well. I'm excited for today because we're talking about something that is pretty mundane, but also something that literally captivates each and every single one of our lives, which is email. And so as we begin to settle in to tonight's conversation, I want to know who primarily is utilizing email right now. Are you primarily using email to communicate with your clients, with your team members? How is it that you're actually utilizing email today? So yeah, let's put that in the comments. Yeah, let me know. How are you all utilizing email today? Are you emailing? And also too, are you emailing like, hold on. The question should be, are you emailing like a lot? Because here's the stat that I want to bring up. I'm going to bring up this statistic, which I thought was pretty wild. This is what they say. Okay, this is a 2024 report that came out on workplace communication. This is what they said. They said that email is the most commonly used workplace communication tool. Okay, with 52% of employees using emails at least once a week. And 2 out of 5 people say that waiting for a response in an email causes them stress at work. Hello, somebody. Who's stressed when somebody don't email you back? Okay, but I feel like that's another type of conversation. I've been there my own self. You're waiting for the reply. You know somebody has read your email. But listen, they sitting up there looking at it, thinking to themselves, I'm going to get to it later. Right? I'm telling you what. It's wild. It's a wild, wild west out here. It's a wild, wild west. But what else is interesting about email? Majority of workers say that 63% of people say, that's more than half, say that at least half of their colleagues are poor communicators. You're probably wondering also too, why are we on this subject of emails tonight, and why are we specifically talking about this? Why? Because I am doing a poll right now. So I did a poll maybe a month ago to talk about, what are the common challenges that project managers, operational leaders are having. Miscommunication was like at the top. I did another round to do a pulse check as we're approaching month 6. Next month is going to be the halfway mark of 2024. Can you believe it? Where has the year gone? This is a question. And so, interestingly enough, miscommunication is the big theme. The secondary one is time management, but we don't have plenty of time to get into all of that. Okay. So I start thinking to myself, as I start diving in deeper into this miscommunication ecosystem, what actually makes this topic of miscommunication such a widely generated topic that's getting on everybody's radar? And one way is email. And this is why we're here. So I agree with that statistic as well, that majority of us, we don't communicate well. And tonight we're going to be diving into some case studies on communication, on writing emails through that lens. And I'm going to tell you some stories that I've been through, mistakes that I've made, and how I've corrected it. So let us begin, everybody. Let us begin. Let's take out pens and pads. Let's share. Let's share with people. Let's let them know. Let's let them know. Let's let them know what's happening here today. So, what am I about to do? You already know what it is. It's about that time. We're going to get up the Notability app. We're going to take some notes here tonight because I do want to make sure that we make it make sense and that y'all can follow along. I'm going to say this right now. I actually like Notability, I believe, over Good Notes. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing right now. So, okay, let me run through. Systems Lab Live. Okay, y'all. Let me do this. Okay, so for tonight, let me change the paper to this as well. Also, in the chat, make sure that you're putting your name, where you're from, and also what you are working on this week. And two, it's 9 days to the 31st. What do you plan on finishing? What are you planning on finishing? I'd love to know that. Okay. And as we go through that, I wanted to make sure I wanted to get the right thing. So we have our Systems Lab Live. Systems Lab Live. I'm just writing our good old good note out and I want to share it. Let me share what we're sharing. I think this is it. I'm going to, let's go back here. Aha. Okay. I think you all can see it. And boom, Systems Lab Live. This is the 5/22/24 edition. All right. So here's what we're doing here tonight. We are going to go through a few examples of use cases. We're going to talk about tone, clarity, and context. These are the three areas that we're going to be looking at here tonight. We're going to go through 3 use cases, but we're going to look at them through the lenses of clarity, tone, and context. So make sure, and I'm going to write that down so that we don't forget as well. We're going to make sure that we have that. So we're going to look at clarity, tone, and context. Those are the 3 particular tips that we're going to be looking at. And we have some use cases that I'm going to walk us through, what we should be doing better, and room for improvement, some best practices, some tips, things like that. Okay. I do want to first talk about a common email use case that we see, which is meeting recaps in emails. Okay, how many of you all, let's talk about it, people. Let's talk about it. How many of y'all are writing emails that are for meeting recaps, right? As project managers, we are responsible for a whole lot of things. There's just nothing that doesn't come across our desk outside of our purview that we don't know about. Now, there's some things where, they do come out of left field, but us being able to manage meetings, oversee the workflow of information, the task execution, it can be a lot. And definitely go back on my YouTube channel. There's definitely a few videos on meeting management that I've done within the past several weeks that you should go back to about best practices and facilitating a meeting notes, all this really good stuff. Again, things to really help mitigate the miscommunication issues. So I want to talk about email tonight because we want to talk about why it is that we are poor communicators and the ways that we can improve. So we're going to be looking at this again through the three lenses of clarity, tone, and context. So for the first use case, let's get it with the first use case. I want to talk about use case number 1, which is meeting summaries and recaps. Meeting summaries and recaps. So, a couple things that we can look at when it comes to meeting summaries and recaps and things of that nature is we want to ensure that number one, you're thanking people. Want to make sure that we are thanking folks that have attended the meeting, that took the time out to come, that participated in it. This, my friends, is going to really help you, which is appreciating the people. That's number one. You definitely want to make sure that in the context of the meeting that you are facilitating or the meeting that maybe someone else on the team is facilitating, but you are making sure that information goes out in a timely manner. You want to make sure, number one, you're thanking the people. People like to be thanked. People like to be acknowledged. And that is something that's going to go a long way. That's something that's going to go a long way. So another thing that you'll also want to do too is address the key points in action items. So as we write a few notes down regarding the const or regarding the meeting summary, we said number one, thank the people. Thankfulness and gratitude. This is just some of my own personal tips and things that have worked well for me in the past. Now, when we get into clarity, tone, and context, you'll be able to see that as we go through the different use cases. So, addressing the key points and follow-up action items. Okay. And follow-up action items. So one of the things that we want to do is when we are looking at the context, when we're addressing key points, you want to make sure that in the email itself, you'll want to see the key agenda topics you'll want to write down. So you'll have the key agenda topics and maybe writing a few bullet points for each of those topics, just to say, perhaps there was a notable idea or something, there was a decision that needed to be made. You want to make sure that there is context to what you're saying. And then for the follow-up action items, you want to make sure that there is clarity into what needs to be done, what needs to be said, and so that people are really clear on who is assigned what. So let's look at that when we say addressing the key points and follow-up action items. Here's what we want to do. We want to address the key points. We want to make sure that the context is there. So you'll set up in your email, you'll set up the agenda topic. And then what you'll have there is you'll have maybe one or two. Nothing too big, right? Just one or two bullet points that address in context what the main idea should be. And that could be a particular action item, that could be an idea, that could be a decision that is going to be made. Now, many of you will probably say to yourself, Ashley, you talk a lot about the technology tools. You talk about, how you can put them in ClickUp. You can put them in Coda. You can do all sorts of things with that. And so what I would say in my response to that is that, yes, that even if you all aren't necessarily utilizing email in this way to do meeting recaps, you can still replicate the same thing even when you were doing when you have your ClickUp docs and things. It can be the same concept that you can do. And then also too, which is really interesting too within ClickUp, is that you can go and you can utilize the email feature as well. So whether you are sending a message out to your team members, you can do that through the email feature within ClickUp, attach the doc, and you could have this mini email sequence I'm showing you right here, this example of how you can write effective emails for meeting summaries and recaps. So you can still combine the technology tool and this format inside of that particular feature. But for those of you all that are in the workplace that are heavily utilizing email every single day, this is going to be perfect for you to be able to set the tone in the right way, get everybody on the same page, making sure that you're addressing the key points when you're putting the action items, excuse me, where you're putting the agenda topics and addressing the key points for each of the topics. So that's for meeting summaries and recaps. And don't forget, definitely put your attachments, your PowerPoint slides. If you are utilizing a PM tool of some sort, this is just a simple framework that can really help make sure that people are on the same page. Now, when we were talking a few weeks ago on meeting summaries and things of that nature, we were talking about the importance of the follow up, because oftentimes we'll have the notes, we will have the action items being assigned, but you definitely always need a driver. You're definitely going to need a driver to make sure that from the action items that are being outlined within the PM tool, that they're being executed. And so the meeting summaries and recaps are going to help you with that. All right. We are rocking and rolling. Any questions that you have, make sure you put them in the chat. Would love to talk through them with you. If you have questions or hiccups that you are running into when it comes to any emails that you're writing, things that are confusing, responses and replies that you're getting. And so I would say that even something that I've done that has been super, super helpful and beneficial is that sending the notes, even sending them even a day later, is really good because they can be at the top at somebody's inbox. And so the timing of when you send it, be cognizant of that too as well. Some people send them right after the meeting, which is helpful. Some people wait a day or two so that they can collect all the information. And so you'll want to just gauge within the team that you have the urgency of the work to gauge when you want to send your emails out. Sometimes, again, it's right away. Sometimes it's another day or two, but just make sure that you are consistent in that so that people know, okay, Ashley typically sends it right after the meeting, or she'll send it the day after. So just some things to keep in mind. All right. So we're talking about meeting summaries. We're talking about recaps. We talked about thankfulness and gratitude because people love to be thanked. We're talking about addressing the key points, making sure that in your agenda topics, you're putting in within context, you're putting in key decisions, some points that needed to be made or underscored, and then also action items. So very good, very good, very good. Okay. And then one other thing I just addressed it, but I just wanted to make sense and make it clear, and I'll write it here as well, is that you'll want to place a link to any, like the tracker, any type of tracker for action items, or notes. Just wanted to put that out there so that we make sure that we're doing that. Okay. Use case number 2. I'm very excited about use case number 2. And I will tell you why. Because if you are like me and you've been in this position before, there's nothing more fun, or it could be aggravating depending on how you look at it, on the power of the follow-up questions, clarifying something. Clarifying questions. Now, this is something that can get a bit sticky, okay? Now, I'll tell you this little story here, and let me scroll up for you. Okay, so what do we mean by the questions and follow-up? So let's say, for instance, there is an issue that's being presented, because this is typically how this comes about. There's an issue that's presented. It's a problem that needs to be solved. It has been sent by someone. They have email. They have put the key folks in the to line. They have put key folks in the CC line, and they are expecting a particular dialogue, discussion, and debate to go on to get to a solution. Okay. Now, what I've always noticed is that when someone is emailing this particular issue at hand, there's always and this is how you know that sometimes it can go left, is that if the context to the issue or problem is not accurately stated, this is when you're going to have a barrage of questions and a barrage of follow-up. And it can get super, super overwhelming. So in the case of essentially having a meeting via email, which, by the way, there's only so much back and forth you can do, folks, before it's time to say, hey, let's just pick up the phone, let's just get on a Zoomie, and let's just talk everything out. Which, by the way, I'm erring erring on that side even more. I just want to make sure I'm clear, because sometimes, to be quite honest, even when you're typing and you're presenting a particular issue, let me tell you something. I can be writing something for like 15 and 20 minutes. And by the time I'm done, I'm sitting there going, Lord, I hope this is clear. And right when I always click send, I just brace myself because I could not be clear. And so that's just something that you always just have to be mindful of, right? When you're talking about presenting an issue, presenting a case, you're always going to have questions and follow up. So here's what you want to do. And this is, again, the 3 particular tips that we're talking about with writing clear emails. We're talking about clarity, we're talking about tone, and we're talking about context. Okay. So when you are presenting a particular issue, you want to frame the particular issue with, here's what I'm looking to solve, or here's where I need more information on. Can someone help me explain? Always think of it in that context. Okay. So let me write a few notes down so that we all can follow these particular steps. So in the case of questions and follow up, okay, here's how you want to frame it. So here's how we want to do it. You want to frame the issue. Frame the issue. Okay. So it's framing the issue or the problem. Now, something I don't think that we talk enough about is who is in the to line and who is in the CC line. Very, very key. So when we talk about questions and follow up, we want to look at it from the perspective of, we want to frame the issue, what the problem is, and then what exactly are we looking for the answer to? We want to know that too as well. So in the to line, make sure that you have the key people that you need to be on the email chain. There's nothing like somebody replying all and saying, hey, I want to add so and so to this email. And then also too, this is also really good too as well, which is sometimes you may not know everybody that needs to be on the email. I've done that plenty of times, where I've said, if anyone else needs to be added to the email chain, just go ahead and reply and add them. The more the merrier. That's actually, and maybe at times that's a little bit too loose. The more the merrier. But I err on the side of come one, come all, because we're all in this together. We're solving the problem. We're solving the issue. The issue needs to be solved. So in the case of questions and follow-up, so you frame the issue, you frame the problem. Okay, you have the right people in the to line, you have the right people in the CC line. You want to make sure, especially if you're looking for a response to something, put a deadline in there if needed. But also too, inside of framing the issue and the problem, make sure you go ahead and add the key questions that you want to add to it. What I always like to do too as well is I love to put a little, and then you can do this in Microsoft. Can you do this in Gmail? I'm not sure yet, but I imagine if it's on a company-wide server, you can at somebody. But anyway, what I always love to do is I love to mention someone, especially if they're a subject matter expert, and say, at so and so, what do you think about X? Can you give your perspective on Y? Love it because it calls it out to attention that I really need these key people to weigh in. Okay, so you sent the email. This is where it gets good. I feel like this is what do you call a soap opera? I feel like I'm giving SWAT, or this is a Dawson's Creek. I don't know, but you've sent the email off. In your mind, there's definitely going to be questions and there's definitely going to be follow up. So in these cases of questions and following up, here's the beauty part of it. You want to be able to receive these questions in a way that says, hey, maybe something that I said, especially you being the author of the email, perhaps I didn't clarify something. Mm? Especially when you get questions that are sent back to say, hey, I don't know if I understand exactly what you're asking. Now, what's really good about those types of questions is that you can go and look to see, was I clear enough? Was I clear enough? You may not be clear enough. Now, I always challenge the person that is asking the question to say, hey, point me in the particular area. I always love when somebody highlights in within an email says, hey, what did you mean exactly by this statement? That's always helpful for me. But that's just my little intricacy, my little thing that I kind of like to do. So questions and follow up. Also, too, if you are on the receiving end of an email, this is something that I always do. I always read an email a couple of times, and I always ask the question to clarify, are you asking X? And this prevents me from writing a 15-minute response that's going to require research. Because in the field that I am in, that happens often. You could go every which way. You could go to New Zealand and back, California to Nevada to South Africa, go around the riverbed and up around the corner, and you have put together a nice little email dissertation that did not answer the question. So when you are doing the follow-up, you want to be able to say, to clarify, did you mean XYZ? This is super helpful because that then prompts the person to say, you know what we just said a few minutes ago. I mean this. Now, I'm saying a lot right now, but I'm going to break it down for you in this particular order right here. All right. All right. All right. So let's get it. So we've talked about framing the issue, the problem, so that we can get to the solution, right? That's what we've talked about. We talked about the to, and we talked about the CC line. The third part of this, we've talked about questions and follow up. So a couple of points for the person that is sending the email, you as the author and the sender, what you'll want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that there is clarity in what you're writing. You want to make sure that within the context of your email, that you are ensuring that people are up to speed on a particular issue, especially if you are bringing in people from other departments, other teams. You want to frame the issue in such a way that they understand the background of it. That's what we mean when we talk about the context. We talk about clarity. We want to make sure that we're utilizing as much as we can simple sentences. Here we go. Now, the third thing is in terms of identifying inside of the email. You may want to identify key people that you want to respond. Here we go. So you may want to identify key people in responding, which I think is great. That helps you to just be very direct to be able to say, this person has a subject matter expertise in this area. So I'm going to make sure that I call it out so that they're able to respond. Okay. Now, for those of you that are on the receiving end of this, and from the receiving end, maybe you're just like, hey, I don't know if I quite understand what you're asking. Being able to ask that question back to say, hey, to clarify, because it's all about tone. That's one thing that we want to mention too, because we're, again, the three lenses that we're looking at is clarity, context, and tone. So to clarify, it's all about the tone, because how many of us have been on the receiving end of things that said, that was a little spicy, right? We've been on the receiving end of like, why did somebody reply that way? Some people I've seen where it's been, what are you asking? I've gotten that before. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's me, right? Maybe it is me. This is where it becomes a bit tricky when we're talking about the way in which we are writing our emails. Sometimes it's too wordy. That's why I put right here as the sender, the clarity is super important, making sure your sentences are simple and short. Now, receiving in, to clarify the tone. And so even in response to that, as a sender, someone that's going to reply, you have a couple of decisions to make. You can directly reply to that person and say, I'm going to answer all your questions. Or B, if you feel like it's too much, you can always say, hey, why don't we get on the phone? Why don't we gather the people around and say, let's have a meeting about it? I've done this plenty of times where the email chain has been 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chains, 10 emails back to back to back. And so what gets lost in translation? Everything that we've talked about. The tone gets lost. The clarity gets lost. And even the context gets lost, because what happens is that as people reply, they're giving their perspective. They're adding in their flavor, their expertise in it, which may take the context of the original email off track, which is why I'm all about the less emails, more meetings. But this does not mean that you don't write any emails ever. It just means we have to get smarter in the way that we write our emails. Hopefully this makes sense to y'all. And yeah, let me know in the comments, where are you all having challenges in your emails when you're talking with clients, when you are working with your team members? Where are you having your challenges in writing your emails? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. And lastly, we're going to go to the last use case, and we're going to wrap it all up, because we're having a good time tonight. We're just having a good time. Oh, disagreements. And I think this is really important. I feel like we do not talk about the fact that there is fighting that goes on in emails. So use case number 3 is, let me go back. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Use case number 3 is disagreements. Disagreements via email. And this is where things get interesting. This is where I caution everyone, and this is why tone always matters. Tone always matters. Now, I'll say this too. I'll say this. And when you are in an email chain that's, y'all are going in deep, and perhaps even it's gone over a few days, you just never know where people are at, what people are doing. People are busy. People are doing 5 million things at once. People are also doing a whole lot. So when you come across a spicier response, sometimes the natural inclination is to say, I'm going to be spicy back. Or sometimes the natural inclination is like, hold up. What's their problem? What they on? I'm gonna tell you something. I had an email earlier today. It was essentially a per my last email. We all know what that's about, but it wasn't said in a per my last email. It said in my original email or in my whatever email, this is why I said X. I said, oh, whoa, okay. Hey, it had been 8 days since I've seen that reply. I'm not remembering 8 days ago what you said in an email. Let's just be quite honest. We're not. So I think that's really important for us to understand that disagreements will happen, but you want to make sure that you keep it professional, right? So we want to watch the tone. We want to watch the tone. We want to keep it professional. Okay. Because people are screenshotting these days, people are saving emails, people are doing all the things. People are doing all the things, right? People are doing all the things. So you want to make sure you watch the tone. You want to keep it professional. And this is when it's a really good time to say, hey, I think we need to meet. Hey, I don't think we're on the same page. And this is where you say, hey, let's set up 15 minutes to talk about it. I also think it's so important to stick to the issue. Stick to the issue and not the person. Ah, my goodness. It takes a lot, people. It takes a lot. Okay? It takes a lot of patience. Stick to the issue and not the person. So just go back to what's the point of where we're disagreeing at? What's that point? And so that's where you want to be the leader that you know that you are. Send that message to say, hey, I think we just need to have 15 minutes. I'm not sure if we're on the same page, but we may be close or we may be far. But I want to hear your perspective. I've done that plenty of times. I think we're not syncing, right? We're not syncing. And then we've also been there where even if you're not an email, maybe you are also in MS Teams or Slack, and you're just chatting away, right? Because it's essentially like texting. And I've been there where you said something, you put an emoji in, and all of a sudden things go left, right? Things go left, right? Because people are getting excited. And so even with that, people, again, it's watching the tone, it's being professional, it's saying, hey, I think we need a call. Because, I've seen it before. I've participated before where it's been like, that probably wasn't the best, right? Or let me clarify my statement, right? Because again, once you're in a dialogue and you're back and forth, what gets lost? The context of what you're saying, even the clarity in which you're trying to articulate, and also the tone. All right. And also, too, the last thing is seeking resolution. At the end of the day, something needs to be solved. Information needs to be sought out. And so how do you get there? How do you get there? Questions, comments, and things. As we wrap up, who has questions about how you are writing your emails, what you should be thinking about? I wanted to go through the 3 use cases because I could just say, hey, make sure you put something in context. No, I wanted to make sure that we understood in these in these 3 use cases what these scenarios are, what could happen, how you can frame the information, how you can address certain things and be able to lead, manage, and do the work in excellence, mitigating any issues with your email and communication. And so it takes work, it takes practice. We're not all perfect, but use every opportunity when you are crafting your emails to have clarity, to make sure that you're writing in the context of the situation in which you are presenting your information, whether that is a client meeting, it could be tasks and deliverables, it could be a status meeting. many different things, right? You want to make sure that you are putting these tips in practice, these tips and practices. I actually like use case number 2, the questions and the follow-up and that solution when you're trying to frame the issue and the problem. And then what can you do to make sure that people are on the same page with what you're looking to do via the email. So what y'all think? What do you all think as we are wrapping up for another edition of Systems Lab Live? I hope this was really beneficial to you all. If you have any questions, comments, if you want me to clarify something, slide into my DMs on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what I could have expanded upon. And I'd love to know. I'd love to know you all because listen, we are out here trying to improve our communication day by day. And so go back to this replay and let me know what you think and reach out if you need some help. So that's it. And I'll talk to you all next week. I look forward to it. And we are almost wrapping up May 2024. Can you believe it? So I'm excited to learn about the projects you're working on next week and all of that good stuff. All right, everybody. See you soon. Bye.